The words exploded out of the white officer's mouth like a bad joke, half laugh, half snarl. Sergeant Harper Stone froze mid-sentence. Her badge glinted on her chest as she stepped through the doorway of the precinct's bullpen. Silence spread like a gas leak. Four officers stood by the holding cells. 3 men, 1 woman, all uniformed, all white. The woman flinched. One of the men, the one who spoke, turned pale. The black woman in question, handcuffed, lip bleeding, jacket torn, sat slumped on the bench against the wall. She looked up slowly, eyes locking with Harper's. No words, just a long, quiet understanding. Harper looked at the cuffs, then at the officers, then at the woman again. "What the hell did you just say?" she asked, calm but low, like a wire pulled tight. The speaker, Officer Brantley, tried to recover. "Sarge, this lady, she was getting aggressive outside the bodega on 9th, so we brought her in. She got mouthy." The woman blinked once, slowly, as if time moved differently for her. Her face stayed still. Harper walked over and squatted in front of her. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" The woman met her eyes. Her voice was quiet, clear. "No more than I expected." Harper stood, turned to Brantley, and said, "Take those cuffs off. Now." Brantley hesitated. "But she—" "Now." He did, hands shaking. The metal clinked to the floor. The woman stood slowly, brushing her hands off like she'd touched something filthy. Harper turned to her again. "Would you like to press charges?" The woman paused, tilted her head, then asked, "Are they going to salute when I walk back in here tomorrow as their commanding officer?" The room tilted. Time snapped like a live wire. The only sound was the hum of the vending machine in the back. And then she smiled. 5 months earlier, Brielle Moore didn't smile much. Not that she didn't want to, but life had narrowed around her like a hallway with no exits. She worked quietly as an analyst at the Department of Justice, tucked inside a stack of budget meetings and data audits that nobody read. Her job titles sounded impressive, senior policy advisor, but she hadn't seen the field in years. Not since the thing in Oakland. She lived alone in a modest townhouse in Silver Spring, Maryland, where the neighbors waved politely and the mailman still mispronounced her name. Brielle Moore. Not Brielle. Not Brie. Just Brielle. French, maybe. Black, definitely. She kept the porch light on too long and the blinds closed too tight. Habit. Her mornings started early, with a half-run around Sligo Creek and a silent prayer to nobody in particular. Her body moved like she still wore the weight of a bulletproof vest. The kind that doesn't just press on your chest but digs into your ribs, until breathing feels like paperwork. She'd tried dating again, once or twice. DC lawyers. Hill staffers. One guy from her gym who turned out to be way too into Jordan Peterson. It never stuck. They all wanted a version of her that didn't exist. Or maybe she just wasn't ready. But on Wednesdays, she visited her father. He lived in a rehab center in Prince George's County, just across the border. Stroke, 2 years ago. He didn't talk much anymore, but he listened. Brielle would sit beside him, hold his hand, and play him Coltrane or early Aretha. Sometimes she'd read aloud from the old Baltimore Sun articles he used to keep stacked in boxes in their garage. "You were a good cop," she told him once, after reading a 1987 profile on his promotion to lieutenant. He'd looked at her like she was lying. "I tried," he finally said. Those were the first words he'd spoken in 4 months. He never brought up what happened to her in Oakland. Neither did she. That silence sat between them like a third person in the room. But it wasn't until a man named Carter Hall walked back into her life that everything started shifting again. He was taller than she remembered. Same gravel voice. Same dark eyes that seemed to weigh you before you even opened your mouth. They met at a security policy conference near DuPont Circle, of all places. She was there out of obligation. He was a surprise panelist. Carter had once been her partner, in every sense. And he hadn't seen her since the day she walked out of the precinct, threw her badge on the desk, and left California behind. Now here he was, in a blazer and tie, talking about accountability and culture reform like someone who'd never watched a man bleed out on a sidewalk. After the panel, he found her outside. "Brie," he said. She hated that nickname. "You look good," he added. She didn't. "You still working numbers?" he asked. She nodded. "You ever think about coming back?" No. But she did. The offer came a week later. Not from Carter, but from someone higher up. A hush-hush task force being assembled under DOJ authority, meant to investigate and embed in local departments with bad records. Quiet. Internal. Unmarked. You'd be inserted undercover, they told her. Investigate from the inside. You'll have full clearance, immunity, and a direct line to federal oversight. You'd have command-level authority by the end of the deployment. She'd laughed. I'm not going undercover in some crooked precinct to babysit racists, she said. No, they said. You're going to command them. She asked for time. Instead, she drove down to 9th and Monroe, bought a coffee, and walked the block 3 times. On the 4th pass, she saw it. A scuffle, 2 uniforms wrestling a black teenager into a squad car. No backup. No de-escalation. No talking. Brielle stood still. When the kid screamed for help, she flinched. That night, she didn't sleep. She called them the next morning. I'll do it. The transfer paperwork was quiet. She used a false name for the first month. Rode along, observed, filled notebooks with details, times, names, patterns. Her cover? Civilian liaison. They barely noticed her. To them, she was the new assistant or the analyst chick. But she watched. Every shift, every sneer, every time a black motorist was pulled for erratic movement, every time a Latina woman got asked if she was here legally, every time Brantley made one of his jokes. She saw it all, and she waited. Waited until the day they made their worst mistake. Until the day they dragged her, in civilian clothes, from a corner store in Ward 7. Slammed her into the hood. Didn't ask for ID. Didn't even run her name. Just said she fit the description. Brielle didn't resist. She didn't yell. She let them do it. She let them cuff her. She let them throw her in the back of a cruiser and drive her, half laughing, to the station. Because she knew what they didn't. That their new commanding officer was starting that same morning. And that she was already late. Brantley tapped the side of his boot against the bench like he was trying to shake something loose from the bottom of it. Maybe guilt. Maybe just the smell of his own mistake. Brielle stood there in the center of the bullpen, cuffed hands now free, jacket still torn at the shoulder. Her wrists were raw. She didn't rub them. Harper Stone hadn't moved. Neither had the rest of the officers. The room was silent except for the fluorescent flicker above the vending machine. You didn't know who she was? Harper's voice was low but steady. Brantley glanced at the others like he was hoping for backup. None came. No, Sergeant. She didn't give a name. We caught her outside that bodega. She was yelling at the cashier. I was speaking Korean, Brielle said, her voice even. I was asking the man if he had tteokbokki in the back fridge. We knew each other. His mother taught my language immersion class. The yelling was me explaining that I wasn't there to steal anything. Harper looked over. You speak Korean? And Farsi, Spanish, and enough Arabic to know when your officer calls me a slur under his breath. No one moved. Brielle turned to Brantley. You said I was getting mouthy. Let's talk about your mouth. His face flushed. We had no way of knowing. That I was human? No. That you were. In charge. She stepped closer. That part wouldn't have mattered, though. Admit it. If I'd been anybody else, if I hadn't shown up today, what would have happened? Brantley looked at the floor. The air in the room was thinning, like the walls had started leaning in. Harper turned to Brielle. Ma'am. It's Captain. Brantley looked up. Harper blinked. What? She asked. Brielle reached into her torn coat, pulled out a laminated badge wallet, and flipped it open. Her full name. DOJ insignia. Clearance level. Assignment. Field Oversight, Federal Civil Rights Division. Effective as of 0800 this morning, I'm the acting captain of this precinct during the internal oversight deployment period, Brielle said. Temporary, full authority. Which means I outrank every person in this room. Brantley took a step back like he'd been slapped. You're joking. The younger officer, Tanner, muttered. I don't joke when I'm bleeding, Brielle said. And right now, one of you is going to write a full incident report, verbatim, with no edits. One of you is going to take me to the evidence locker so I can recover my personal effects, including the contents of my purse, which you illegally searched. And the rest of you? You're going to sit your asses down and think about what it means to be a cop in a city that already doesn't trust you. Harper exhaled slowly, then gave a sharp nod. Yes, Captain. Brielle turned to the bench. Her voice dropped. Do you have any idea how many black women walk into this building and never walk out the same? Nobody answered. She stared at Brantley. You picked the wrong one. She headed toward the hallway. And then she paused. What's your daughter's name again? She asked without turning around. Brantley stiffened. What? You mentioned her once. Offhand. Her name's Lila, right? 5 years old. Likes to wear glitter boots even when it rains. He didn't speak. Good. Remember how scared you'd be if someone treated her like trash because of how she looked. She walked away. 3 months earlier, Brielle sat in a beige-walled government conference room with a file thick enough to crush someone's faith in institutions. Your target is the 5th District Metro Police Precinct, the DOJ rep had said, sliding the file toward her. They've had 12 internal complaints related to discrimination and use of force. 5 have been buried. 1 whistleblower. No media coverage. They've avoided federal review due to lack of visible misconduct. That's where you come in. Undercover. No. Under authority. You'll be embedded as interim command under a civilian reform clause. A recent DOJ directive gives you legal backing. You'll walk in as captain. No votes. No warning. Full control. Brielle had stared at the man across the table. This is the part where you tell me I'll be safe, she said. He hesitated. This is the part where I tell you you're the best shot we've got. She didn't say yes right away. She went home, sat on her floor with an old photo of her academy graduation, and let her fingers trace the corners. In the photo, she was smiling. That version of her still believed that good cops could fix broken systems. She remembered a night in Oakland when she stopped a fellow officer from planting a dime bag on a teenager who'd backtalked him. That officer got a slap on the wrist. Brielle got cold shoulders and an unscheduled transfer. And when she complained, they told her she was too sensitive. That night had been the beginning of the end. She stopped believing the house could be cleaned from the inside. Now they were asking her to pick up the broom again. She didn't want it. But she couldn't walk past another sidewalk scene without remembering what it felt like to be invisible in uniform. So she said yes. The training came fast. The cover story was tight. Her DOJ clearance was upgraded. And in the weeks leading up to her first day, she sat in her apartment watching bodycam footage, reading officer bios, memorizing patterns. Brantley's name came up 5 times. Use of force. Excessive language. Racial profiling. Nothing stuck. They always knew just how far to go. And then, on her first day, she stopped by a store she'd visited for years. Familiar place. Friendly face. One last moment of normal. Then she asked for tteokbokki in Korean. And everything changed. Back in the precinct locker room, Brielle stood in front of the mirror. Her lip was still bleeding. The red stood out against the blue of her uniform, which she'd pulled from her bag in silence. No ceremony. No pride. Just fabric and buttons. She dabbed the cut gently, her eyes locked on her own reflection. Behind her, Harper leaned on the doorframe. You okay? Harper asked. No, Brielle said. But I will be. Harper hesitated. Brantley's gonna file his report. I'll see that it's accurate. Thanks. You know they'll hate you for this. Brielle turned. They already do. I mean, more than usual. They'll call you a plant. A fed. They'll say you got here on a quota. Brielle nodded. Let them. You think it's worth it? Brielle didn't answer right away. She looked back at the mirror, at the bruises starting to form, at the fire in her own eyes. Then she said, ask me again when I make one of them cry for the right reasons. Harper gave a dry laugh. You're terrifying. No, Brielle said. I'm tired. She walked past her, back into the hallway. The precinct was quiet now. Word had spread. Some watched her pass. Some looked away. But none of them stopped her. And for the first time in years, Brielle felt something she hadn't let herself feel since Oakland. Not pride, not power, but purpose. And that scared her more than anything. Brielle sat behind the desk in the captain's office, the door closed, the blinds drawn. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was waiting, coiled, tight, like a spring that hadn't snapped yet. She stared down at the intake report Brantley had just handed her. 3 pages, typed. She could smell the panic in it. Every sentence tried to justify what he'd done that morning. The tone shifted halfway through like he couldn't decide if he was protecting his job or pretending he hadn't almost assaulted his superior. She picked up a pen, wrote one word in red ink across the top, unacceptable. Then she put the file in a folder marked pending disciplinary action. There would be more. She wasn't here to play savior. She was here to tear things open. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. Come in. It was Harper. She stepped in, then closed the door behind her. We've got something, she said. Bodycam footage from this morning. Yours. Brielle blinked. Mine. They were rolling when they cuffed you. They didn't recognize you, but policy kicked in. Cameras on. I had IT pull the video while they were on their lunch break. She handed over a flash drive. I haven't watched it, Harper said. Didn't think it was my place. Brielle didn't move, just held the drive in her hand like it might burn her. You're not going to like it, Harper added. I already lived it. Still, she plugged the drive in. Opened the folder. Hit play. The screen showed the familiar chaos of bodycam footage, jerky angles, muffled voices, the blur of sidewalk concrete. Then her face came into view. Calm, confused, asking a question in Korean. And then, shut your mouth. A shove. Hands behind your back. Her voice, steady. What's going on? Stop resisting. Another shove. You think you're special or something? And then, low, muttered, but clear. Another loud-ass black bitch. The video froze. Brielle's finger hovered over the space bar. She stared at her own frozen face on the screen, eyes wide, lips parted mid-breath. Harper whispered, I'll back you if you file. Brielle closed the laptop. Not yet, she said. You want them to get away with that? I want them to think they did. Harper tilted her head. You're playing a long game. I'm playing a real one. And I'm not showing my hand until I know exactly how far this rock goes. Harper didn't respond right away. She just looked at her, then said, We've got a call coming in. Civil disturbance on F Street. Officers are en route. Who's responding? Brantley. And Tanner. Brielle stood. Get me a vest. You want to ride with them? No. Brielle said, grabbing her coat. I want them to see who's watching now. The patrol car rolled slow down F Street, its sirens off, but lights flashing. Brielle sat in the back seat, behind the cage, silent. Tanner glanced in the rearview mirror. You sure you don't want to ride up front, Captain? No, Brielle said. This view feels right today. Brantley said nothing. His knuckles gripped the wheel too hard. They pulled up on a scene unfolding outside a pawn shop. Two teenagers, both black, both clearly scared, stood against the wall while the shop owner waved a wrench and shouted something about shoplifting. What's the situation? Brielle asked. They grabbed headphones and ran. Owner caught one. The other came back. Said they didn't steal anything. Tanner shrugged. We called for backup in case it gets loud. Brantley added, already called dispatch. Should be a quick pickup. No, Brielle said. They both looked at her. We're not arresting anyone until we get the facts. Tanner opened his mouth, but she cut him off. Get the store video. Now. 10 minutes later, Brielle stood inside the cramped shop watching grainy footage. The kids walked in, looked around. One picked up a pair of headphones, then set them back down. They walked out. That was it. Brielle turned to the shop owner. Why'd you say they stole something? I thought. Look, they looked suspicious. She stared at him. What does suspicious look like? The man hesitated. They were nervous. Kept looking over their shoulders. They're kids, she said flatly. You shouted, and one of them ran. Then the other came back to help his friend. That's not theft. That's survival. Back outside, Brantley was halfway through writing a citation. Brielle snatched the clipboard from his hand. Stand down, she said. He stiffened. Captain, they what? Didn't steal anything? Didn't raise their voices? Didn't have the right color skin to be left alone? She turned to the boys. You're free to go, she said, softening her voice. I'm sorry this happened. One of them blinked. Are we gonna get in trouble? No, she said. Not today. They ran. Brantley clenched his jaw. You're going to make enemies fast-pulling stunts like this. Brielle stepped close. Not yelling. Not threatening. Just quiet. If you think this is a stunt, you've already lost. She turned away. That night, Brielle sat on the roof of her townhouse, a beer untouched next to her, the flash drive in her lap. The city buzzed below. She hadn't told her father about the assignment. Not yet. She'd seen him earlier that week, still silent, still watching her like he saw something she couldn't. She'd held his hand and whispered, I'm going back in. He didn't blink. Now she understood why. The job didn't get easier. You just got better at bleeding without leaving a mess. Her phone buzzed. A text from Harper. We need to talk. Something's not right with Tanner's last arrest report. I think it was altered. I think it's been happening for months. Brielle stared at the screen. One thread unraveled, and already another was waiting underneath. She thought of the boys outside the pawn shop. The crack in Brantley's voice. The frozen footage. She wasn't going to save this place. She was going to expose it. And she was just getting started. The precinct looked different at night. Same walls, same halls, same crusted coffee mugs in the break room. But after hours, it felt like a church no one believed in anymore. Quiet, heavy, full of ghosts. Brielle walked through the darkened bullpen, Harper trailing close behind. They passed a desk where someone had left a half-eaten sandwich and an open report on gang activity. The AC kicked on with a rattle like a sigh. Harper spoke low. Tanner booked a 19-year-old last Thursday. Name was Isaiah Phelps. Minor possession. Supposed to be a routine citation. Brielle stopped. Supposed to be? Harper handed her a printout. Here's the original report. Says the kid was carrying less than half an ounce. Cooperative. No priors. Okay. Now read the final filed version. Brielle flipped the page. This one was longer, padded with notes. Isaiah Phelps, 19, arrested for disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, attempted assault. Different tone, different story. A narrative full of aggressive behavior and unprovoked hostility. The kind of words that get charges stacked and lives derailed. Brielle looked up. You're saying he falsified this? I'm saying it changed sometime between booking and morning shift. Harper crossed her arms. And I pulled security footage from the evidence room. Tanner was in there alone for 12 minutes. No cameras inside the actual locker, but timestamps match. Brielle took a slow breath. How long has this been happening? Harper shrugged. Hard to say. Most people don't look twice when the accused is young, poor, and black. Brielle looked down at the paper. What happened to the kid? Still in holding. Public defender hasn't seen the file yet. They keep delaying the arraignment. No one's asking why. Brielle walked to the window and looked out at the empty lot behind the precinct. A streetlight buzzed above a cracked sidewalk. Set up a meeting, she said. With who? The kid. I want to talk to him myself. The holding area smelled like metal and regret. Isaiah Phelps sat on a concrete bench, hoodie pulled up, eyes half closed. He looked more tired than angry, like someone who'd seen too much in too little time. When Brielle walked in, the guard started to rise. She held up a hand. I've got it. She sat across from Isaiah, leaving the space between them quiet for a moment. I'm not here to lecture you, she said. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a friend. But I'm the one who can get you out of this room, so I need the truth. He eyed her cautiously. You a cop? Technically. He leaned back. Then you ain't the one I trust. I don't blame you. But if I was trying to hurt you, you'd already be in orange and processed. He looked down, picked at the seam of his sleeve. I didn't do what they said. I know. I didn't even run. He told me to stop, and I did. He just didn't like the way I looked at him. Tanner. Isaiah didn't answer, but his silence was enough. He ever say anything to you? Anything racial? He didn't have to. Just kept smiling like it was funny. Brielle leaned forward. You're going to be out of here tomorrow. Charges dropped. Quietly. But I need you to do something for me. Isaiah narrowed his eyes. What? Tell me everything you remember. Every word. Every move. Especially the parts they thought no one would notice. Later that night, Brielle sat alone in her office, a recorder playing Isaiah's voice back in loops. He said, why don't you boys ever just shut up and comply? Like I wasn't a person. Like it was a routine. She paused the tape. Her hand hovered over her notes. This wasn't about one crooked report. It was a pattern. Tanner knew what to write. Knew what words would scare a judge into issuing a higher bail, or push a DA into ignoring red flags. The system wasn't just tolerating him. It was built for him. A soft knock pulled her out of her thoughts. It was Harper again, holding a stack of reports. Cross-checked 6 other arrests by Tanner this year. 4 of them have edits between the preliminary file and the final version. Brielle stood and took the papers. You're doing good work, she said. I didn't join to be part of this, Harper replied. I don't care what color someone is. Wrong is wrong. Brielle studied her face. There was something deeper behind the words, an edge of guilt. Or fear. You've been in this building a while, right? 8 years. You ever file a complaint? Harper hesitated. Then, once. What happened? Nothing. Of course. That's what always happened. Brielle closed the file and said quietly, let's make this the last time that's true. The next morning, Brielle called a department-wide meeting. Officers shuffled in, some still clutching coffee, others pretending they didn't care. Brantley leaned against the wall in the back, arms folded. Tanner sat near the middle, smirking like he didn't believe any of this was real. Brielle stood at the front, calm, deliberate. This won't be long, she began. I'm not here to boost morale. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to make sure this department stops destroying people. The smirking faded. I sharpened. I've reviewed arrest records, body cam footage, intake files. And I've seen enough to know that this department has a culture problem, and it starts here. Someone muttered something. Speak up, she said sharply. We're doing honesty now. Silence. Brielle continued. Effective immediately, all reports will go through a secondary review before being filed. All evidence room access will be logged and verified. And every officer with more than 3 force complaints in the past 2 years will be re-evaluated under federal review, including those who were cleared by internal affairs. The room tensed. And if that makes anyone nervous, good. Maybe now you know how it feels. She stepped back. Dismissed. As they filed out, Tanner stood last. He gave her a look that said he wasn't done. Brielle gave him one back. Neither was she. That night, she stood in her kitchen, chopping onions for the first hot meal she'd bothered with in weeks. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. No message. She let it go. Then her landline rang. No caller ID. She picked it up. A low, male voice came through the static. You should watch yourself, Captain. Click. She stared at the receiver, her breath still. And then she smiled. Because threats meant they were scared. She placed the phone back down. They were finally paying attention. The precinct didn't wake up the next morning. It bristled. Word had spread. The new captain, that black woman from DOJ, wasn't here to smile and shake hands. She was here to dig. And everyone knew what happened when someone started turning over stones in this place. Things crawled out. Tanner came in 20 minutes early, which was unusual. Brantley came in 20 minutes late, which wasn't. Neither spoke as they passed Brielle's office. Inside, she was already deep into a stack of reports. Names, dates, patterns. Officer Tanner had a record of arresting young black men for vague charges: resisting, loitering, obstruction. Always the kind of charges that gave cops room to lie. Brielle had seen this before. She remembered an officer in Oakland who called it creative report writing. That officer had later accidentally discharged his weapon during a routine stop. The victim hadn't survived. Neither had Brielle's faith in the badge. Now she was seeing the same tactics, just in a new zip code. Harper entered without knocking. You've got a visitor. Legal. Who? Public Defender's Office. Says she's representing Isaiah Phelps. Brielle stood. Bring her in. A tall woman in her 30s walked in moments later, trench coat still damp from the rain. Her briefcase looked like it had been through a war, and her expression wasn't far behind. Captain Moore. Yes. I'm Kira Mendel. I was assigned Isaiah's case. Your officer Tanner tried to block access to the original report. The kid's been in holding 5 days. What's going on here? Brielle gestured for her to sit. What if I told you that report was doctored? Kira didn't blink. I'd say I'm not surprised. But I'd ask how high this goes. Brielle leaned back. That's what I'm here to find out. I want the report. Both versions. You'll have them in an hour. Kira's face softened, just a little. Why are you doing this? Brielle looked at her. Because it could have been my brother. Could have been me. They sat in that quiet, sharp truth for a moment. Then Kira stood. If Tanner retaliates. He won't, Brielle said. He'll be too busy explaining himself to internal affairs. Kira smiled at that. Not a full smile. Just a flicker of something human. Then she left. Brielle watched from the bullpen window as Harper escorted Tanner to the interview room. He didn't know yet. He walked in like it was a routine review. Like he'd wiggle out of this with some eye roll and charm. He found 3 people waiting. Harper, Brielle, and a DOJ rep from Internal Affairs. Take a seat, Officer Tanner, Brielle said. He laughed a little. Come on, you serious? No. I'm federal. That shut him up. She pushed a folder across the table. This is your amended arrest report from last Thursday. Care to explain why it doesn't match the original file? He opened the folder slowly. His poker face cracked almost immediately. I updated it. Based on new observations. Those new observations conveniently justified a higher bail amount. They also tacked on charges that could have landed an innocent kid in jail for up to 3 years. You sure you want to stick with new observations? Tanner looked to Harper. She stared at him like he was gum under her boot. Do you know what falsifying a police report carries under federal oversight? Brielle asked. No one's pressing charges, he said. Are they? Brielle leaned forward. That depends on how honest you are right now. Silence. Then, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. It's just how things get done sometimes. You write it a certain way to make sure they stay off the streets. Brielle blinked. You mean black kids? He didn't answer. She stood. You're suspended, effective immediately. Internal review pending. You'll be escorted off the premises. You can't. I just did. As she turned, she added, and if I find out you altered one more report, you won't just lose your badge, you'll lose your freedom. The precinct buzzed like a beehive kicked off its branch. By the end of the day, everyone knew. Tanner escorted out, Brantley staring at his computer like it had betrayed him. Whispers followed Brielle wherever she walked. Some weren't even whispers. She's making it personal. She's gonna turn us all in. Another quota queen trying to make a name. She heard it all, logged it all. Harper found her in the break room late that evening. You just made your first real enemy in here. Brielle sipped her coffee. Just the first. You think Brantley's gonna stay quiet? No, Brielle said. I'm counting on it. That night, someone left a note in her mailbox. No envelope. Just a torn piece of paper with 4 words in black ink. Back off or pay. She read it twice, folded it, put it in her pocket. Then she walked upstairs, opened her laptop, and pulled up the database. Tanner was done. Brantley was next. Across town, Brantley sat in his car, knuckles tight on the wheel, eyes fixed on the house across the street. Her house. He'd followed her home. Didn't know why. Didn't know what he'd do if she walked out. He just sat there, watching, sweating, and waiting. Brantley's car engine hummed quietly under the street lamp. He hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Brielle's house sat across the street, porch light casting soft yellow on the front steps. It was quiet. Too quiet. She didn't know he was there. At least, that's what he told himself. But Brantley wasn't the kind of man who sat in silence well. He lit a cigarette with shaking fingers, rolled down the window, watched a black cat slink past the trash bins. The dashboard clock clicked forward. 1:04 a.m. What the hell was he even doing? He didn't know. All he knew was that something in him was cracking, and every time he saw her face, the calm, the authority, the way she looked at him like she already knew what he was, it pushed the crack deeper. He thought of Tanner. The way he looked walking out of the station. Head low, badge stripped. No ceremony. No second chances. That was Tanner. And he wasn't Tanner. He was smarter, careful, respected. The kind of guy who made things go away. But now things were sticking. Now things had a name. Brielle Moore. He stared at her door for a long time. Then, with the stub of his cigarette still glowing, he pulled away. The next morning, Brielle sat in her office with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She hadn't slept. The note from her mailbox lay flat on the desk. Back off or pay. She'd dealt with threats before. Real ones. Death threats after testifying against officers in Oakland. Hate mail from anonymous burn accounts. One time, someone had mailed a noose made of zip ties to her apartment. That one was still in an evidence box somewhere in California. But this was different. This was close. And it meant she was getting closer. She clicked open a folder on her computer. Suspicious activity, internal. A dozen names, including Brantley, Tanner, and 3 officers who hadn't been on her radar before the Tanner fallout. Patterns were emerging. Reports filed at odd hours. Shared wording. Missing timestamps. Complaints logged and then vanished. She needed help. Someone who knew where the bodies were buried and wasn't afraid to dig them up. So she picked up her phone and made a call she'd been avoiding. Carter Hall, he said on the second ring. You still owe me, Brielle replied. Silence. Then, I figured you'd cash it in eventually. I need someone on the inside of internal affairs. Someone who can cross-check badge access logs without raising red flags. That's asking a lot. You asking me if I care? Another pause. What are you working on, Brielle? I'm cleaning house. And it's about to get ugly. Carter exhaled. Send me what you have. I'll get back to you tonight. Use the burner. I don't trust department channels. You trust me. I trust what you did for me in Oakland. Silence. Then he hung up. That afternoon, the mood in the precinct was tense. Officers avoided eye contact. The break room stayed empty. Every door Brielle opened felt like it had something behind it that didn't want to be found. She sat in the back of roll call, watching. Brantley stood up front, delivering the standard patrol briefing like he always had. Steady, firm, sure of himself. But his eyes kept darting toward her. He knew the balance had shifted. When roll call ended, she called out, Brantley. My office. He walked in slowly, shut the door, stood like he expected an ambush. Take a seat, she said. I'd rather stand. Suit yourself. She opened a file. Do you remember an incident last March involving a man named Darius Sloan? Brantley didn't answer. She looked up, pulled over for a busted taillight. Ended up in ICU. claimed excessive force. Your report said he resisted, but the paramedics who arrived said he was already unconscious. Brantley finally spoke. That case was closed. It was buried. There's a difference. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking why the dashcam footage was never logged. Brantley narrowed his eyes. That footage didn't exist. No, Brielle said. It just went missing. Silence again. She stood and walked around the desk. Stopped inches from him. I'm not trying to embarrass you, she said quietly. I'm trying to give you one chance to walk away before you go down with the rest. Brantley's face didn't move, but something flickered in his eyes. Fear, rage, shame, maybe all three. You think this place wants you? He said, voice low. You think they'll follow you just because you've got a badge and a degree and a fancy title? They'll wait until your back's turned, and then they'll eat you alive. I'm not here to be liked, she said. I'm here to make sure no one ends up in ICU because someone like you couldn't stand to be challenged. She stepped back. You're on restricted duty. No field work. No partner assignments. You'll desk it until this investigation's over. Or until IA gets the footage you say doesn't exist. Brantley's hands clenched at his sides. You just made yourself a lot of enemies, he said. Good, Brielle said. Now they're out in the open. That night, Carter called her back. I found something, he said. A deleted key log from the evidence room. Brantley accessed the Sloan case box 3 days after it was closed. No documentation. Just 5 minutes inside. Long enough to pull a hard drive. Brielle didn't respond. Carter added, this goes deeper than Brantley. I'm seeing internal memos, redirect orders, and signed approvals. There's someone up the ladder protecting this. How high, she asked. Too high to say on the phone. Then meet me. Tomorrow. Off-site. Where? Same diner from the academy. Corner booth. You still remember the code? He asked. Of course. She hung up. Outside her window, a car passed slowly. She moved to the side, careful not to be seen. They were watching her now, and if they thought she was afraid, they were about to learn something new. Brielle arrived at the diner before sunrise. It hadn't changed. Same cracked red booths. Same peeling jukebox. Same woman behind the counter with the smudged name tag that still read Sharon, even though it had been barely legible since 2014. The air smelled like burned coffee and bacon grease. The kind of place where time didn't move unless you told it to. She slid into the corner booth and ordered a black coffee. No cream. No sugar. Just something to hold while she watched the door. Carter arrived 12 minutes late. Same long stride. Same tired eyes. The suit fit, but barely. Like he was still trying to be comfortable in a world he used to belong to. Captain Moore, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. She raised an eyebrow. Don't. He smirked. Fine. Brielle. You bring it. He pulled a thick manila envelope from his coat and laid it on the table between them. She didn't open it. Not yet. You sure you want to see this? He asked. She looked him dead in the eye. I wouldn't have come if I wasn't. Carter nodded, leaned back. You've got a leak. Top floor. Someone in Metro HQ has been rerouting internal inquiries from your precinct. I traced it back to a deputy chief's assistant. Fake credentials. Temporary hire. 6 months on payroll. No real name. Just a ghost in the system. Who hired him? That's the problem. No paper trail. Brielle finally opened the envelope. Inside were screenshots, badge logs, clearance forms with redacted fields, and one photo, grainy, but clear enough to see a man walking into a server room at HQ. Brielle frowned. I know him. Name. Malcolm Reese. He used to be IA. Vanished 2 years ago after a misconduct complaint. Allegedly resigned for family reasons. Carter shook his head. Now he's back, but under a different alias. Which means someone wanted him close to this case. She looked up. Brantley. No. He's dirty, but he's not smart enough to orchestrate this. Then who's protecting him? Carter hesitated. You ever hear of Commander Garin? Brielle felt her stomach tighten. He's Metro's golden boy. Was, Carter said. Now he's quietly pulling strings. Every precinct he touches has a spike in misconduct and a drop in accountability. My guess? He's building something. A network. For what? I don't know. But if you go after Brantley and expose Tanner, you're not just cleaning house anymore. You're cutting at the root. Brielle looked down at the folder again. This goes federal, Carter said. You won't walk out of this with just a promotion. You'll make enemies you can't see. I already have. Then you'd better be ready. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. That afternoon, the precinct was unusually quiet. Officers walked the halls like shadows. Conversation stopped when Brielle entered a room. Good. Let them be afraid. She walked into the briefing room with the folder tucked under her arm. Brantley was there. So was Harper. A few others. I need every arrest report from the last 18 months flagged for review, she said. Start with officers who've had more than one excessive force complaint. I want those first. Someone in the back, Officer Watkins, raised a hand. What are we looking for exactly? Patterns, Brielle said. And ghosts. Anything that doesn't match. And I don't want anyone working alone. Partner up. Murmurs started. Harper stepped in. You heard the captain. Let's move. As the room emptied, Brantley lingered behind. You're making a lot of noise, he said. Brielle turned to face him. You think I'm afraid of that? I think you don't know what's behind the curtain. She stepped closer. Then open it. Brantley smiled without warmth. You think you're playing chess. But some of us already flipped the board. Then he walked out. That night, Brielle drove to the rehab center. Her father was sitting by the window, his face turned toward the setting sun. The nurses said he didn't talk much anymore, but that he always seemed more alert when Brielle visited. She sat beside him, pulled out the folder, laid it on her lap. I found something, she said. Something bad. Her father didn't speak, just watched the light fade across the floor. I think I'm going to blow this whole thing open, but I'm not sure what happens after that. If I lose my job, or worse. He blinked slowly. Brielle sighed. When you were on the force, did you ever feel like you were just patching up holes in a boat that was already sinking? A long pause. Then his voice, quiet, rasped. Sometimes. She looked at him, surprised. But I patched anyway, he said. She reached over and took his hand. I'm not patching this time, she said. I'm sinking the damn thing. He smiled. Just a little. Later that night, her phone rang. Harper. Captain, you need to come in. Now. What is it? It's Brantley. He's gone. Gone where? We don't know. He didn't report for his shift. Left his badge and sidearm in his locker. No note. Brielle felt her skin go cold. Check the logs. Who did he last speak to? Already did, Harper said. The last person he called. Brielle waited. Was you. The precinct's walls felt like they were breathing. Brielle could feel them pressing in, every hallway tighter, every whisper sharper. Brantley was gone, and his last call had been to her. But she hadn't gotten it. No missed call, no voicemail. Nothing. She stood in the doorway of his locker, staring at the open compartment. Badge, gun, and a folded sheet of paper sat on the top shelf. Nothing else. Harper handed her gloves. We haven't touched it. Brielle nodded, pulled the paper out gently. Captain Moore, you wanted the truth. You were right. It's deeper than you think. But I'm not going down for all of it. Someone's watching. Maybe you. Maybe them. Doesn't matter anymore. Check the bridge. Check the blue folder. Then decide if you still want to play hero. B. Jesus, Harper muttered. What does that mean? Which bridge? Brielle's voice was distant. He used to sit under the Key Bridge after shifts. Said it was the only place in D.C. where you could be invisible without being gone. She turned and walked out fast. Tell dispatch we may have an off-duty officer at risk. Potential suicide or flight. I want every camera feed from Georgetown to Rosslyn. You think he's running? I think he's unraveling. The Key Bridge was quiet when she got there. The Potomac slid dark and steady beneath it. Traffic above moved like nothing mattered. She found Brantley's cruiser parked under the bridge, half tucked behind a column of concrete tagged with graffiti. Engine cold. Doors locked. On the hood sat a folder. Blue. Just like the note said. She looked around. No sign of him. Then she opened it. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Surveillance shots. Blurry body cam stills. Handwritten notes. Names. And one sheet labeled. Garin, Internal Ops, Unofficial. She flipped through fast. A chart. A tree of connections between precincts. Bribes. Disappearances. Complaints that never reached court. It all pointed back to Commander Garin. He wasn't just protecting Brantley. He was using him. And more than that, he was using the entire department as cover for something bigger. Her phone buzzed. Harper. I found something, Harper said quickly. You're not going to like it. Worse than a rogue commander pulling strings. Your office was accessed. 40 minutes ago. What? The logs were wiped. But the security door registered a badge swipe. High level. I think someone planted something. Brielle's pulse kicked up. She sprinted back to her car. By the time she got back to the precinct, Harper was waiting outside, pale. It was your laptop, she said. Gone. Cleaned. Even your files in the server directory. Whoever did it knew what to look for. Carter's folder? Still locked up. Brielle didn't waste time. They ran to the evidence lockup. But when they got there, the box was open. The contents were gone. Empty. Only one thing remained. A single photograph. It had been left intentionally, like a warning. It was a picture of Brielle walking into the precinct on her first day. And drawn in red marker across her chest were 3 words. Too late, bitch. Brielle didn't speak for a long time. Harper stood frozen behind her. Then, finally, "We've been made," Brielle said. Harper nodded. "They're trying to smoke you out." "No," Brielle said. "They're trying to burn it all down before I can prove it exists." She turned. "We need to move now. Get Carter on the line. Tell him the Garan file's compromised. I want a secure drop location for a backup copy. No digital. Physical transfer only. And Brantley." Brielle paused. "He's not the problem anymore." Carter met her in an underground garage in Arlington. No words. He handed her a second copy of the file. "This is it," he said. "Everything I could pull before they scrub the servers. If they know you have this, they'll come for you next. They already are." He touched her arm. "You still have time to walk. You know I can't." Carter gave a tired smile. "Then let me help." She looked at him. "You've helped enough." Then she turned and walked into the night. The next morning, she walked back into the precinct like nothing had happened. Uniform on. Chin up. Eyes forward. Her office had been cleaned out. Files missing. Laptop gone. But she sat at her desk anyway. And waited. Not for orders. Not for backup. For war. Because now it was clear, this wasn't about bad cops anymore. This was about a whole machine designed to protect them. And she was about to blow it apart. One name at a time. Across town, inside a black SUV parked near Judiciary Square, a man in a suit watched her on a surveillance monitor. His fingers tapped slowly against the armrest. "She's not backing off," the driver said. The man didn't reply, just stared, then reached into his coat and dialed. "Tell Garan," he said. "Phase 2 starts tonight." Brielle didn't go home that night. She knew better. After what they did to her office, her files, her laptop, she wasn't going to give them the chance to hit her where she slept. Not again. She crashed at Harper's apartment, a small walk-up with exposed brick, 2 mini throw blankets, and the smell of cheap pasta sauce lingering from dinner. Harper didn't ask questions when Brielle showed up on her doorstep with nothing but a go bag and a bottle of scotch. "I hope you don't snore," Harper said as she handed her an extra pillow. "I hope you don't cry in your sleep," Brielle shot back, and for a second, they both laughed. But neither of them slept. Brielle lay on the couch, Carter's second file copy beside her on the floor, the TV glowing with a muted local news broadcast no one was really watching. The screen showed footage from earlier that week. Isaiah Phelps, released. A public defender at his side. No charges filed. No press conference, just grainy cell phone footage from outside the courthouse. But it was the look on Isaiah's face that got to her. Not relief. Not gratitude. Just wariness. Like he didn't believe he was really free. Like he knew freedom for someone like him was temporary. Brielle shut the TV off. She stared into the dark for hours. The next morning, the precinct was eerily calm. Brantley was still missing. No new leads. No digital footprints. Not even his car had moved. "Maybe he skipped town," Harper offered as they walked the bullpen. "No," Brielle said. "He's waiting. He's watching. He wants to see what I'll do next." She reached her office, now nearly empty, and locked the door behind her. Inside the file Carter had given her, she found a short memo labeled Confidential, Metro OPS Council. The sender, Commander Garan. The recipient line, blank. The contents were blunt. Operation Echo is in motion. Priority is asset protection. Remove unstable personnel. Secure all departmental records flagged by RE4. Maintain optics. Any internal threats should be neutralized with discretion. Brielle stared at the phrase neutralized with discretion. It wasn't just corruption anymore. It was coordinated and sanctioned. Someone was building something inside Metro PD. Something built on fear, lies, and erasure. She wasn't looking at a few bad cops anymore. She was looking at a syndicate with shields. Later that day, Carter sent a message through secure text. Drop. 3 p.m. Bench at Rock Creek Park. Jacket pocket. Move fast. Trust no one. Brielle showed up early. She parked down the street and approached on foot. No backup. No badge. Just her and a gun tucked into the back of her jeans. The park was mostly empty. A few joggers, a mother with a stroller, a man throwing bread to ducks. The bench was under a tree near the trailhead. On it, a beige windbreaker. She walked past once, casual. Second time, she sat down. Third time, she reached into the pocket. Inside was a USB and a note. Proof. Garan. Internal Suppression Unit. Recruits, records, payments. You'll need help. This is bigger than us now. She pocketed the USB and stood. That's when she saw the jogger stop. Not to stretch, to talk into a mic. Her instincts kicked in. Brielle turned sharply and moved. Fast. The man saw her and said something low. Then two other men stood from the nearby trail. Both in black. Not park security. Not random. She ran. Through the trees. Across the footpath. Heart pounding. No time to think. They followed. She ducked behind a fence, leapt over a ditch, landed hard on her ankle, but kept going. Behind her, one of them shouted, "We don't need to kill her." That word stuck. Need. So they would if they had to. She reached her car and jumped in. Tires squealed. Rearview mirror, one of them on a radio. Gone. For now. Back at the precinct, Harper helped her limp down the hall, eyes wide. What happened? Someone knows I have the USB. You need to call it in. No, Brielle said. If I call it in, it disappears. This goes federal. Quietly. On my terms. She sat on her desk, wincing, and pulled up a secure laptop Carter had given her months ago. The same one she swore she wouldn't use unless everything fell apart. It was time. She plugged in the USB. Dozens of files loaded. Payment trails. Names. Officer transfers. Unauthorized surveillance ops. Garen's digital signature on nearly all of it. And then one folder made her stomach twist. More watch list. She opened it. There were photos of her. Walking. Driving. Visiting her father. Sitting at the window of her townhouse. Unaware she was being watched. And at the bottom. If non-compliant, remove. Brielle sat back. This wasn't just about corruption. It was about control. And they were preparing to eliminate anyone who got in the way. That night, she called Carter. I need this in the hands of a journalist, she said. Someone who doesn't care about clearance. Someone who'll go public no matter what. I've got a guy, he said. But if we do this, you're going to war with Garan. I already am. Carter hesitated. There's one more thing, he said. Brantley's name just popped up on an encrypted channel I monitor. No message. Just a location ping. Where? Abandoned warehouse. East DC looks like a trap. I'm going. I'll come with backup. No, she said. They're watching you too. Then take someone you trust. She looked over at Harper, who was already reading her expression. Fine, Brielle said. I'm not walking into this alone. 2 hours later, Harper parked 3 blocks from the warehouse. The streets were dead. No lights. No noise. They moved on foot, weapons drawn but low. Inside the warehouse, silence. And then, footsteps. Brantley emerged from the shadows. Unarmed. Pale. His clothes were wrinkled like he hadn't slept in days. You came, he said, voice shaking. Where's the rest? Brielle asked. They're coming, he said. Garen's men. I tried to warn you. I thought, maybe, I could still do one thing right. A sound outside. Engines. Too many. Harper raised her gun. They're here. Brantley stepped forward. Take it. Flash drive. Everything. Garen's network. Where the money goes. Where the files are stored. He held it out. And then a red dot appeared on his forehead. No. Brielle shouted, diving. A shot rang out. And Brantley dropped. Blood hit the concrete. Harper pulled Brielle back behind a pillar. More shots outside. Someone was coming in. Brielle clutched the drive in her hand, heart slamming. They weren't going to arrest her. They were here to end it. But she had what she needed. And someone was going to pay. Gunfire echoed off the warehouse walls like thunder trapped in a box. Brielle crouched behind a rusted pillar, one arm shielding Harper, the other clutching Brantley's flash drive like it was the last key to the whole damn kingdom. Her ears rang. Her breath came in hard, fast bursts. Across the floor, Brantley lay twisted in the dust. His chest barely moved. Blood pooled beneath him, thick and dark. Harper swore under her breath. We're pinned. Brielle nodded, eyes scanning the shadows. 2 shooters. Maybe 3. One's flanking left. I count 4 sets of boots, Harper said, voice low. And at least one of them's got thermal. We can't wait here. Brielle popped out for half a second, saw a muzzle flash from the upper catwalk, ducked back just as a bullet chewed through the metal post behind her. She didn't hesitate. She reached into her coat, pulled a smoke grenade from the tactical kit Carter had packed in her go bag, yanked the pin, and rolled it across the floor. The hiss came first, then the bloom, thick gray smoke swallowing the space between them and the shooters. "Move," she said. Now. They sprinted through the fog. Another shot rang out, this one punching through Harper's sleeve. She gasped but kept running. They made it to the stairwell just as another blast took out a beam behind them, sending rust and concrete flying. At the top of the stairs was a busted door, half-hinged, leading to the roof. They pushed through and burst into the cold night air. The rooftops stretched out into darkness, just a sea of broken vents and puddles reflecting the full moon. Brielle could hear footsteps behind them. "No ladder," Harper said. "No escape." "There's always an escape." Across the alley, the adjacent building was just close enough. Maybe. Without thinking, Brielle backed up a few feet, ran hard, and jumped. The landing wasn't clean. Her foot slipped, scraped along the edge, and she slammed into the rooftop hard, shoulder first. But she made it. "Harper," she shouted. Harper didn't hesitate. She followed, leapt, and caught the ledge. Brielle grabbed her arms and pulled her up, breath ragged. Behind them, a voice shouted, "She's got it. Don't let her leave with the drive." They ran. Through stairwells, down into alleyways, ducking between dumpsters and chain-link fences, until they reached a side street with a beat-up sedan Carter had stashed for emergency use. Brielle fumbled with the keys, threw the door open, and they peeled out just as headlights flared behind them. 30 minutes later, they were inside a borrowed safe house, bare walls, dusty air, and a single folding table with 2 chairs. Harper sat down, bleeding through her sleeve. That was almost it. "It's not over," Brielle said, rifling through the med kit. "They wanted to silence Brantley before he gave us the rest. And we let them. He gave you something." "Yeah," Brielle said, holding up the flash drive. "Let's see what it costs." The drive was encrypted, military level. No way it came from any average precinct database. Brielle plugged it into her burner laptop, ran Carter's decryption protocol, and waited. Bit by bit, the contents unlocked. And what came out nearly made her sick. Photos, videos, voice memos, secret meetings, off-the-books operations. Dozens of officers paid off to cover up misconduct, plant evidence, bury complaints. And then the final folder. Echo. Inside, a list. 200 names. Cops, judges, DA assistants, private contractors, all tied to a surveillance and suppression program that targeted activists, whistleblowers, and internal threats. Funded through fake nonprofits and community engagement grants. And right in the middle of it, Commander Garan. He wasn't just protecting the system. He was the architect. And Brielle, she was listed under a subfolder labeled High-Risk Termination, I in Progress. She stared at the screen. Her photo. Her badge, her home address, notes about surveillance routines, timestamps of when she left her father's rehab center, GPS pings from her car. They were already in motion. "I need to get this to someone on the inside," she said. "Someone still clean." Harper nodded. "What about Carter? They'll trace him. He's already flagged." "No, this goes public." "You sure?" Brielle didn't answer. She opened an encrypted browser, logged into a secure Dropbox, and uploaded the folder to the Junction, an underground network of investigative journalists who didn't wait for permission to break stories. Then she set a trigger. If she didn't check in within 12 hours, the files would go live. Names, videos, documents, everything. Across town, Commander Garan sat in a private office lit only by the glow of a computer screen. He read the report on his monitor twice. Then a third time. His assistant hovered nearby. "She's still breathing," the assistant said. Garan didn't look up. "For now. She's gone public. Our back channels are closing. Doesn't matter." He clicked open a folder labeled Phase 2. "I gave her a choice," he said. "She didn't take it. She's going to burn it all." "No," Garan said, standing slowly. "She's going to remind everyone why they needed us in the first place." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope. Handed it to the assistant. "Deliver this to Metro Command. Tonight." "What's in it?" Garan finally smiled. "A fire." Brielle stared at the screen until the upload completed. Harper sat nearby, cleaning the blood off her arm, quiet. No one spoke. Not yet. Because the city was holding its breath. And somewhere in that breath, a line had been crossed. Brielle had the proof. Now she had to survive long enough to make them listen. The city didn't sleep that night. Neither did Brielle. Rain hit the windows of the safe house in uneven sheets, tapping like fingers against the glass. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and cut out too fast. She sat at the table, eyes fixed on her phone. 11 hours and 31 minutes until the trigger pulled and the story went public. She'd bought herself a countdown. But the second that clock hit 0, everything would ignite. Harper stirred on the couch behind her. She'd finally dozed off, cradling her arm, wrapped in gauze and painkillers. Her breathing was shallow. Even in sleep, she looked tense. Brielle didn't blame her. They were way past the badge now. This wasn't about policy or oversight or slow change reform. It was about survival. And she had one shot left to make it count. She glanced at the screen again. The files were uploaded, distributed, split into shards across the network, encrypted, scattered, waiting for her check-in. If she made it to the end of the day, she could control the release. Choose what went out, who got named. If she didn't, everything burned. By sunrise, they were moving. Carter called just after 6 a.m. They raided my apartment. Took my drives. My laptop. I had to dump my phone. You okay? Brielle asked. For now, but they're not playing. Garen's pulling strings I didn't even know existed. We've got to push the story now. Not yet, Carter said. There's one last piece. Something Brantley knew but never got to finish. What? The internal witness list. Names of officers who were blackmailed into silence. Brantley kept it offline, on paper. Stored it somewhere off-grid. A friend of his. Retired lieutenant named Ramos. Lives in Alexandria. Brielle nodded. Give me the address. I'll meet you there. No, she said. You disappear. I need one of us on the outside in case this turns into a funeral. Brielle, go dark, and wait for my signal. She hung up, turned to Harper. You good to move? Harper flexed her arm, winced, then nodded. Yeah, let's finish this. Lieutenant Ramos's house was quiet. 2-story colonial. Flag out front. Trimmed hedges. No cameras. No lights on. But Brielle saw the curtain shift when she pulled up. She walked up slow, hands out, badge showing. Ramos opened the door with a shotgun pointed at her stomach. I swear to God if you're one of Garen's. I'm not, Brielle said. But I think you knew Brantley. And I think he trusted you with something important. The man looked her up and down. White. Mid-60s. Retired, but still sharp. Come inside, he said, finally lowering the barrel. Quickly, the box sat under a loose floorboard in the den. Dusty, taped shut, labeled in permanent marker. Sins I didn't commit. Inside were 12 envelopes. Each one labeled with a name. Each one containing handwritten statements, photos, and evidence, collected over years. Brantley had been building it long before Brielle ever walked through that precinct door. Each envelope detailed how Garen's network manipulated rank-and-file cops, blackmail, career threats, silence for promotion deals. A system of fear disguised as a chain of command. Brielle's hands shook as she leafed through the files. These weren't just officers. They were victims, too. Harper stepped forward, reading over her shoulder. This is it, she whispered. This is how we tear it all down. But Brielle didn't smile. She looked at Ramos. Why didn't you say anything? The old man's eyes were tired. I spent 30 years protecting people who didn't protect me. You get tired of screaming into an empty room. Well, Brielle said. I'm about to break the door off. They were halfway back to the car when she felt it. Not saw, felt. That tightening in the air. The quiet that didn't belong. She turned just in time to see the black SUV pull up fast. No sirens. No markings. Just tinted windows. And men in suits. Go, she shouted, shoving the box into Harper's arms. 2 figures stepped out. One held a weapon. Not drawn, but ready. Harper slammed the car into reverse as Brielle ducked behind it, pulling her own gun. Stand down, Captain Moore, the taller man shouted. This doesn't need to end badly. Then walk away, she snapped. We're under direct authority of Metro operations. You've stolen classified federal property. You mean the proof you've been building a paramilitary suppression unit under the nose of every oversight committee in D.C.? Silence. Then a click. Weapons up. Shoot, and it's all over the news, Brielle said. Right now, I've got files on 10 servers across 5 states, and all of them go live if I miss a single check-in. You're bluffing. Try me. They hesitated. Then the driver spoke into a mic. A pause. And then, unbelievably, the SUV pulled away. No shots. No threats. Just retreat. Brielle stood frozen. Harper rolled down the window. They're scared. No, Brielle said, sliding into the passenger seat. They're stalling. Back at the safe house, she locked the door behind them and laid the box on the table. 12 names. 12 witnesses. Enough to detonate the whole operation. Now it was time. She sat down at the laptop, logged into the release platform. Harper hovered behind her. We good? Brielle stared at the blinking timer. 4 minutes and 52 seconds. She reached for the pause key. Her finger hovered. And then her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. A voice came through, calm and composed. Captain Moore. This is Commander Garan. Silence. You've been busy. Brielle said nothing. You think you're the first person who's tried to bring this down? You're just louder. And that makes you easy to track. Still, she didn't speak. I'm offering you a deal. Don't release the files. Walk away. No charges. No threats. You go back to DOJ, get your promotion. Let the machine keep running. She spoke, finally. I didn't come here for a promotion. Then you came here to die. Click. The line went dead. Harper's eyes widened. What the hell was that? Brielle didn't answer. She stared at the clock. 2 minutes and 41 seconds. She picked up the phone again. Dialed Carter. Release everything, she said. You sure? There's no one left to trust. Let it burn. 3 minutes later, the Junction site lit up. Every server. Every feed. The names. The faces. The memos. The payments. The chain of corruption from the 5th Precinct to Garen's private slush fund. It went viral in under 10 minutes. Local stations picked it up. Then regional. Then national. Whistleblower captain exposes Metro PD Black Ops program. Commander Garan implicated in citywide suppression effort. DOJ responds with full federal investigation. The machine was breaking. Finally. But as Brielle sat back, staring at the screen, she felt no victory. Only clarity. Because burning a house down is easy. But walking through the smoke and building something better? That's where the real fight begins. Across town, Garan stood in his office, watching the screens as his empire collapsed. He poured a drink with a steady hand. Then he opened a drawer. Inside, a second phone. And a note that read, Plan C. Rain fell like judgment. It slicked the streets of D.C., blurring the red and blue lights flashing outside Metro PD headquarters. Federal agents swarmed the building. Plainclothes and suits. Some with clipboards. Others with cuffs. News vans lined the sidewalks. Reporters shouted over each other. Umbrellas clutched in tight fists. Voices straining to make sense of the chaos. Metro Police scandal explodes overnight. DOJ Captain Brielle Moore, an embedded investigator, exposes secret surveillance operation. Commander Garan under federal investigation. Inside the precinct, the silence was louder than any siren. Officers stood at their desks, stunned. Some whispered. Others sat in stunned quiet. A few had already packed up their lockers. No one looked at the captain's office. Because they knew. She won. And nothing would ever be the same. In the back of a black SUV 3 blocks away, Commander Garan sat stiffly, still wearing the suit he'd put on that morning. His tie was loose now. His eyes bloodshot. The second phone in his hand buzzed. A message blinked across the screen. Plan C activated. Exit in 40 minutes. Wait for green. He closed his eyes. He had built everything carefully, piece by piece. For years. The network, the silence, the fear. It wasn't just power, it was architecture. And now it was collapsing around him, not because someone found a crack, but because someone refused to stop digging. Brielle Moore. He muttered her name like a curse. Like an oath. Back at the safe house, Brielle sat alone in the dark. Harper had gone home to her wife. Carter was still off-grid. The files were out. The names exposed. Garen's whole operation had been yanked out of the shadows and nailed to the daylight. But Brielle didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a grenade that had finally gone off. The phone buzzed again. It was an encrypted message from the DOJ. Return to headquarters. Immediate debrief. Full protection in place. She stared at it. They were trying to bring her back into the fold now. The institution she'd burned half of her soul protecting was ready to shake her hand again. She shut the phone off. Because this wasn't about a debrief. This was about finishing what she started. She arrived at Metro HQ by foot, not escorted, not armed. Federal agents watched her approach. A few looked stunned. One saluted. She ignored them all. Inside, the air had shifted. The stink of arrogance was gone. Brantley's desk was empty. Tanner was already in custody. She walked to her office, and opened the door. Everything had been put back in place. Her nameplate, her files, even the chair adjusted to her height. She sat and waited. 10 minutes later, they brought Garan in. He wasn't in cuffs. Not yet. But he was surrounded. And he looked at her like nothing had changed. Like he was still the one in charge. "You made a mess," he said. She smiled. "No. I made it visible. You think this'll fix anything?" "No," she said. "But it'll stop men like you from hiding behind uniforms while they act like tyrants." Garan leaned forward. "You'll never win the long game. This country was built on people like me. And it survives because of people like me." He sat back, smirking. "You're going to spend the rest of your career looking over your shoulder." "No," she said. "I'm going to spend the rest of it dragging every one of you into the light." A Fed stepped in. "Time's up." Garan stood, still smiling. But something behind his eyes cracked. As they took him away, Brielle finally exhaled. Weeks passed. Investigations spread like wildfire. DOJ task forces took over multiple precincts. Officers who once mocked her now whispered about her like she was a ghost story. Some called her a traitor. Others called her a hero. She didn't care. Because real change wasn't press conferences or viral clips. It was slow, heavy, personal. It was showing up every damn day and refusing to flinch. One rainy morning, she visited her father again. He was awake, sitting by the window, his face calm. She sat next to him. No words for a while. Just rain. Then he said, without turning, "You burned it all down." She looked at him. "Yeah," she said softly. "I did." He nodded. "Good." She took his hand. For the first time in months, she smiled. Epilogue. 3 months later, Metro PD held a ceremony. Quiet. No press. No cameras. Just one folded flag, one framed certificate, and a room full of people who had finally learned what accountability sounded like. Captain Brielle Moore didn't attend. She had work to do. Because justice doesn't end with headlines. It begins with truth. And she had more truth to deliver. Every day, every step, unbending, unafraid, and now, unstoppable.